kind of looks like I'm not wearing pants, but I'm wearing these shorts. Don't get it twisted. You're nasty.
You're a little nasty.
So it's May, and this month is actually Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. I've been wanting to do a video for a while about me being Asian. I don't know if you know this, but I'm Asian. I don't know if you could tell. That would be perfect, especially for this month. It just all worked out. The stars aligned. This is gonna be a more serious, chatty type video. I mean, this isn't gonna be a serious video because I'm me and I have this problem / defense mechanism where I have to use jokes and humor whenever I'm uncomfortable. So, growing up Asian. A little bit of a background for me, I am 3/4 Vietnamese and 1/4 Chinese.
Just a warning, I say Vietnamese very weird in this video. Maybe it's because I'm talking really fast throughout this video because I had so much to say, but I start saying Vietnamese very weird. I start saying like Vietnamese. Like I say hell fast. I don't know, it just sounds like I'm pronouncing it very weirdly. So just a forewarning.
That's about an estimate. I've never done one of those like DNA tests where you like spit into a tube and send it out to the lab where the government can have all your information and DNA. And eventually, maybe, possibly in an alternate universe, they can steal your identity and make clones of you, but I mean, it's a conspiracy. I don't believe that. Like, what? What do you mean? My mom is full Vietnamese and maybe a little bit French. I'm not 100% sure. I know one of my like great grandparents or relatives was French. Personally, I don't identify with that just because if I am French, it would be such a small amount that it doesn't even matter. And also, I don't look like it either. At least to me, I don't look like. What do French people even look like? White. I don't look white. I know a lot of Viets in my generation, they say they're French, but like, are you really? Like, pull up the test results. I feel like half the time a lot of Viet kids hear that one of their long distance relatives were French and then they think it's really cool because we're mixed and they want to be like special or whatever, so they say they're French. But really it's just kind of this like internalized problem where we want to have some type of European in us because we want to be white so bad. But that's not all cases. I'm sure some Vietnamese person out there is actually French, but I just know a lot of Viet kids, and me including, had that problem. So my mom's Vietnamese, my dad's Vietnamese and Chinese. They got together, had me and my siblings, and yeah, life's pretty crazy. So my parents immigrated here when they were young. I don't really know much about their whole immigration and their travels and their childhood just because they never talk about it. Other than when my parents are yelling at me, comparing me to them when they were young and how they had it way harder and how they had to walk 10 miles just to get to school. But other than that, I don't know anything. Even though I am Vietnamese and Chinese, my family is more focused on the Vietnamese side, like culturally and everything. My dad does know a little bit of Chinese, but unless we're getting dim sum, he ain't using it. So I don't speak my mother tongue. I don't know Vietnamese. I'm very Americanized. I'm very whitewashed. I used to speak pretty good Vietnamese when I was younger, like 4 or 5, because I went to Vietnam for a few months. But obviously, as I grew up in America, I ended up losing it. I really wish I could speak Vietnamese. I feel like that's kind of on me. I didn't put in the effort to learn it and actively speak it. I do understand a lot of Vietnamese though. Like my parents do speak to me in Vietnamese and English. I do find though that I have trouble understanding Vietnamese from other people that aren't my parents, my relatives and stuff that they speak to me. It definitely takes me a little bit to understand what they're saying, especially if they use like unusual words that I'm not familiar with, because usually my parents are just like telling me to do something like go grab a bowl, go grab a plate. So I grew up in America, specifically California, in the widest, most suburban town ever possible. So because of that, I was one of the few Asians at my school. Like if you asked me to name another Asian person in elementary school, I would have to think about it.
To say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is. I mean, he could be walking down the street. I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to this man.
And I think that definitely says a lot about how much diversity there was. I do remember meeting 2 other Vietnamese people at my elementary school, and it was just so cool to meet someone that was like me. We definitely had that like natural bond of us being Asian and especially the same ethnicity. And I remember in class we would like make jokes and say potty words that we knew in Vietnamese. Surprisingly, growing up, I never felt too alone. It never really crossed my mind that, oh, I'm Asian and I look different from these other people, because in elementary school, kids are not thinking about that stuff. We're thinking about recess. We're thinking about being the first person in line for the monkey bars. And obviously like 8-year-olds aren't politically active and they don't know what racism is yet. By the way, racism is taught. You cannot argue with me on that, because when we're kids, we make friends with everybody. We don't judge anyone for how they look. But as we grow up, that starts to develop. Probably by your parents' morals and views or media. But yeah, racism is taught. Because I ain't never seen a baby jump out of the womb saying racial slurs. Just saying. I never was really ever made fun of or bullied for being Asian. At least from what I remember, there is a chance that I probably was, and it was traumatizing, so I like buried it deep down, so now I can't remember it. But I never was like heavily bullied or made fun of for being Asian. But I know so many Asians out there had it so much worse, and they had to just go through some really bad shit. And I guess I was just that rare exception. I'm not saying I haven't experienced it at all. I've definitely come across like racist comments, racist Asian jokes, and accents and mocking. And I feel like every Asian kid goes through that, which is so horrible that that's a norm and that's what we expect when growing up Asian. I just haven't had it so bad where it was like an everyday thing. It was kind of just like here and there. I remember an experience I had last year, my junior year, first semester. Obviously we're in high school now, that's when people are starting to get more educated, start being more political, and all the annoying redneck conservatives start popping out of nowhere, especially because I live in a very white city. So my junior year, I was in this class. Sadly, I got stuck in a group full of Trump supporters. I don't know how I got through that. It was a struggle, let me tell you. But, you know, I did it. I have tougher skin because of it. So, you know, we grew. Growth was seen. I could get into this long rant about all the stupid things that was said by them. Thankfully, I had my one other friend that was in the group. We got each other through it. We held each other back. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the racist things that were said. So there's this one girl in our group. She was like, I think half Mexican. She was mixed. To be honest, I couldn't have been able to tell. She was definitely white passing. I'm talking that girl from on my block that was killed off because everyone hated her. Yeah, I'm talking that.
Están actuando como un grupo de niños. Si alguien dice otra cosa, les voy a pegar en la boca. All of you.
When that girl got killed off on my block, I was so excited. Like, I felt so satisfied. And this girl, I don't think was intentionally racist, and she didn't realize what she was saying, but it definitely was not okay. One time, my friend and I walked in, and this girl was taking selfies, and she said something along the lines like, ew, I look ugly, or I look gross, I look Asian. And me and my friend were just like, I'm a hug Bimo because I just feel like it. There was another time where we were joking about how I drive because at that time I recently just got my license. So I always had the seat pushed forward really close to the steering wheel, and the steering wheel was like this close. This close to me, and we were making jokes about that. Nothing racist, nothing about me being Asian and driving. And she wasn't even in the conversation really. She was kind of like on the side, but she kind of just butted in and did like an impression of me driving, and she like held the steering wheel really close, and then she squinted her eyes, and then we were all just like... And then throughout the year, she said multiple other things that were very questionable. I never really called her out on it, which I don't understand why I never did that, because now I totally would call her out on it. Even growing up where I live, I still found myself surrounded by a lot of other Asian people and a lot of other people of color. Like, most of my closest friends are people of color. It wasn't intentional. I didn't grow up being like, okay, I need to only make colored friends. It kind of just happened naturally. They were just more relatable to me. I'm not saying I don't have any white friends. I definitely do have a lot of white friends, obviously, because my entire town is like 95% white people. But it was nice growing up with people who were also different, and it was just comforting. And I still grow culturally Asian, definitely not like compared to someone who actually lives in Vietnam or Asia, but I still have the same morals and behaviors, like no shoes in the house, you have to respect your elders and your parents, you can't like argue back. Getting spanked as a punishment, borderline, it wasn't spanked, it was more like getting attacked. But we're gonna sugarcoat it and say getting spanked. We don't need the government coming in, you know, Child Protective Services. We don't need y'all coming in. We celebrate Lunar New Year. We have one of those altars in our house, which if you're Asian, you know what I'm talking about. And I even visited Vietnam a few times as well. Moving on to Asian representation in media. This is something I'm very passionate and I care a lot about because I'm an Asian person in media. I literally just realized this now. There's probably people out there watching me right now who look at me and be like, oh, there's a person that like looks like me. That's like cool. I never really realized that before. I love that so much that I can be a part of this process as we slowly try to work towards more representation. Especially with like YouTube and social media, there's definitely a lack of like Asian representation compared to everybody else. You know what? I'm actually gonna list and recommend you guys some of my favorite Asian people in media. And I'll put a big list here and you can pause and check them all out and support them if you want. So Hollywood has been getting better at Asian representation, but they do be recycling the same actors though, and only be casting Wasians that don't even look Asian. Now before anything, I just want to say, even if you are half white or have any variation percentage of white in you, but you still are also Asian, you look Asian, you grew up culturally Asian, whatever, you are still valid, you are still considered Asian or whatever you identify. And I just wanted to say that because I know a lot of mixed people out there have this dilemma they go through where they feel like they don't belong in any certain group. They're too Asian to be white, but they're too white to be Asian. I know it's really hard for you guys to like find your identity, and truly I mean no harm in what I'm saying. So with that all said, let's talk about Wasian privilege. So Hollywood has found this loophole on casting Wasians to play Asian roles because they saw that people want more Asian representation and they want to see more Asians on their screen. So to resolve that, they started casting more Wasians, and that's completely fine. Cast Wasians, they're still Asian, they can still play roles, but it's getting to the point where majority they're casting Wasians. How many times did I just say Wasian? Too much. So it's almost like representation. When I watch movies, I'm like, oh, like you kind of look like me. I can kind of relate to you, but not really. You're kind of like what Western beauty standards want me to be. For example, Crazy Rich Asians. I love that movie so much. It's honestly one of my favorite movies ever, but Henry Golding, who plays the main love interest, who plays the hot guy in the movie, is Wasian. And that is a trend that is very apparent in Hollywood, to cast Wasians to play the love interest or the hot Asian dude. More examples are Charles Melton, Ross Butler, and more. I remember seeing something about the first ever Filipino model to walk the Victoria's Secret fashion show, but she was also mixed. Like, she was Filipino, don't get me wrong, like you can kind of tell, but for the most part, she had all the features of a white person. So I changed my battery and also got myself a bowl of food. Hollywood just needs to start casting more full Asians. I'm not saying don't cast Wasians, but I feel like it shouldn't be dominantly Wasians playing Asian roles. There's so many actors out there that never get the chance, like this role's made for them and it's kind of taken and stolen from them. Casting Wasians kind of just like a shortcut to me. They're like trying to do it, but they're half doing it. And it's really toxic because it's almost telling Asian people out there who are full Asian that you have to have white in you to be good enough. It's just like glorifying these Eurocentric beauty standards that shouldn't be the standard. Everyone should just be able to appreciate and love themselves and the features that they do have. Also, Wasians or Asian people with Eurocentric features, because there are Asian people that do just naturally have that, always get more praise than a Asian person with Asian features. I do quotation marks because everything is so broad. We're not trying to stereotype or anything because everyone looks so different. There's so many different Asians out there, by the way. When I say Asian, it's very broad term. There's East Asian, South Asian, Southeast Asian. A lot of people hear Asian and just think about East Asians. There's more Asians than just Chinese, Korean, Japanese. India, that's in Asia. So yes, Indian people are Asian. The amount of times I've told people I'm Vietnamese and then they say, oh, I thought you were Asian. Like what? Like, I'm bad at geography, but like I'm not that bad at geography, you know what I'm saying? Like on TikTok, on Instagram, it's always the Asians with white features that get more attention than a full Asian person. If you go and look and examine it, it's so plainly obvious that social media favors Asians that look white. And that's due to us being brainwashed by society that Eurocentric features are more attractive and are more superior than others. That's just so unfair and so stupid, like so dumb. I used to want to be white so bad. Like, I hated the way I look. I remember I used to say, I wish I was half white at least, just so I could be considered hot. That's such a toxic mindset and such a horrible mindset to have. And I still go through that. Sometimes even now, I'm like, I wish I was half white. Like, I wish I had these white features. It's even at the point where I want surgery, even to this day. And I don't know if it's just because I want surgery in general, but I haven't really figured it out yet. I really have to like evaluate myself. I think I'm gonna wait though till I work more on my self-love until I actually decide to get surgery or not. Obviously, I don't want to get surgery just because I hate myself. Like, I want to love myself first and love who I am and what I've been born with before actually getting surgery, because I want to make sure the surgery is actually gonna make me happy. Like, I've thought about wanting to get nose surgery or like nose injections because my nose isn't that like curved button nose that's more upward. I look in the mirror constantly and I always like go like this. and just like kind of imagine myself on how I would look. A lot of things I want to fix are like my Asian features, and I think that's just so like that's just so like dumb that I've been wired to think this way about myself, and that society has these like standards and stuff, and like it's pressuring just people of color in general to want to change themselves, even though we're all beautiful. And I constantly say that. I constantly tell other people like, you're so beautiful, like you don't need to change yourself, like everybody is beautiful. Yeah, I don't feel that about myself. Obviously what I'm saying is true, because like look at me, I'm literally the product of being pressured by beauty standards and by media, because the media doesn't have people that look like me, and if they do look like me, they're like don't really look like me because they're mixed with white, so they don't actually look like me, they're what I want to look like, and it just sets a whole nother expectation. And yeah, I also for the longest time wanted double eyelid surgery, because if you guys didn't know, one of my eyelids is a double eyelid and the other is a monolid, and I tried like fixing that. I got the double eyelid tape. I tried where you go like this and you kind of like push your eyelid to like help it practice. I even like got like a bobby pin and tried like pinning it, try to like make it permanent and have the double eyelid stay there. I think some people out there might relate to this, but when you wake up sometimes you have a double eyelid. On one of my eyes I already have a double eyelid, but on my other eye sometimes I wake up and it's also a double eyelid. Maybe it's due to just like puffiness in the morning, but sometimes I do wake up and I have a double eyelid and I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my god, I look so good. I feel so happy throughout the day. Like I'm like, oh, today's gonna be a good day because I have 2 double eyelids now. Okay, moving on from the surgery stuff, because that's more of a self-hate thing and self-love thing than an actual Asian thing. Sometimes I get really scared and anxious and I overthink a lot about how I'm Asian and I'm in social media and how I want to be in the entertainment industry and music industry specifically, and I couldn't tell you right now a single mainstream popular full Asian artist that's in like top hits, because all the popular artists right now who are Asian are all part Asian, but they don't have many Asian features. There is the artist in 88 Rising, and I love 88 Rising so much. I feel like 88 Rising, although it is very popular, a lot of people know about them, I think they're more popular in the Asian community, and also they're a record label that made it a goal to focus on Asian talent. The fact that they had to like do that instead of just, I don't know how to explain it, but like it's just different. I think they are doing a good job for moving just from Asia to being more popular all around the world, but I wouldn't say they are mainstream popular yet, like top hits yet. And then I started to question like, am I talented enough? Am I too ugly? Am I not good looking enough to be able to be in this music industry? And then I started to compare myself to other Asian people. If they couldn't even make it, like how could I make it? So it just is hard on me a little bit.
What I was basically trying to say is that there's a huge lack of Asian artists in the music industry who are full Asian and actually look Asian. And the Asian artists that do exist are smaller artists, while there's no Asian singers who are in top hits, mainstream music. And there's like nobody I can really look up to. Obviously, I do look up to the Asian artists that do exist, but there's no like big artist that I can look up to who has paved the way already, if that makes sense. Such as how there's many black artists. There's Beyonce, Rihanna, etc. Wow, Asian artists, there just aren't that many of them that you can, unless they're on the smaller side, which is completely fine. And for 88 Rising, I was basically saying how they had to go through all that hard work to fight for Asian representation in the music industry, and how other races such as white people don't have to do all that hard work. They don't have to create this record label that only brings in white artists. White people can just do it on their own. Also, I did not talk about K-pop because I feel like that's a completely different thing, and I'm more talking about Asian Americans, so yeah.
I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that actually, about how people of color have to work way harder to become successful compared to a white person or white passing person. I'm gonna bring this situation to TikTok so that it's more understandable to everybody. I noticed that people of color not only have to be attractive and good looking, but they also have to be talented or funny or have like a really great personality in order to get attention and get success. And then on the other hand, I noticed that white people who, yeah, are attractive, they don't have to have a talent. they don't have to have a good personality, they don't have to be a good human being, and they get way more attention, way more success than these people of color who are not only talented, funny, great personalities, beautiful, they have all of it, but the white person still can get it way easier. Also, half the time, they're douchebags, they're horrible people, they're so boring, and y'all know that's evident from their live streams, and half of them have scandals. It's just so clear the privilege that they have. So yeah, if you have it, just realize your white privilege, know that you have it, acknowledge it. Also, being Asian on social media, I constantly get compared to other Asian people or K-pop people. If you go to any Asian person's page, 9 times out of 10 there is a comment about, oh my god, you look like insert any Korean celebrity here. And not to mention, let's talk about like the Korean beauty standard. I don't know why, but in a lot of like Asian cultures, at least in Vietnamese culture, looking Korean, being pale, because in Asia they're really obsessed with being pale because that means you come from a suit and tie family, and if you're tan, you like come from a poor family, you're a farmer, which is very weird because that's like the opposite here where everyone wants to be tan. But anyways, looking Korean in Asia is like the holy grail, like that's the goal. Like sometimes my family relatives come up to me and they're like, oh my god, you look Korean, and they say it as a compliment. And if you really think about it, why don't they say, oh my god, you look Vietnamese? Why is Vietnamese not a good thing? Why is, oh, you look Korean considered good but everything else is not? And also, I'm constantly getting compared to other Asian YouTubers, especially if they're on more of like the aesthetic niche side or the artsy side or the vlog style side. Even if we look nothing alike, we have totally different personalities, our content is different, and the only factor that is the same is we like making our videos aesthetically pleasing, yet we still get compared to each other even though we're completely different people. But then I go to like a white YouTuber's channel who also has an aesthetic niche, and they never get compared to other YouTubers who also have an aesthetic niche. Now moving on to racism towards Asians. Racism towards Asians is so normalized now. Most of the time, racism towards Asians is ignored or is considered okay and is never talked about because we're looked at as like this model minority. I listed a bunch of examples. First thing I wrote is stereotypes. There's a stereotype that all Asians are smart, all Asians are nerdy, and that's very prominent in a lot of movies. There's also that stereotype that Asians aren't attractive, and that nerdy stereotype also kind of built into that. Not to mention, people mock Asian accents a lot, and they still do that to this day. And a lot of people would say Asians are smart. That's a good stereotype. Wouldn't you want that? Not all Asian people are academically smart, so that kind of puts a pressure on them to be like, oh, I'm Asian, I'm supposed to be smart, like what's not clicking? And also that kind of takes away the hard work that Asian people put in. I know a lot of people have gone through this experience where their intelligence was invalidated and people would just say like, oh, you're only smart because you're Asian. Your race and your ethnicity does not correlate to your knowledge and your intelligence. I would say a lot of Asian people are hardworking. For the most part, a lot of Asians do get good grades and get into top schools, but that's because of how we grew up and how our parents grew up. I'm not saying all Asian people are like this because obviously we're all different, but I know a majority of Asian families have this higher standard compared to maybe a different family to get straight A's, to get into a top college, especially because a lot of our parents are immigrants, so they came here to give us a greater opportunity to be successful, so they don't want us to waste that opportunity. So for the people out there that think people are smart only because they're Asian, you need to shut the fuck up. You do not know what you're talking about, and you are invalidating other people's hard work and success because you're insecure about your own success and how you are failing. So the next thing I want to talk about is the fox eye trend. I don't know if the fox eye trend is racist, but it don't feel right to me. If you guys don't know what the fox eye makeup trend is, it's basically you get eyeliner and you kind of like make a point here and here. All I know is that it like kind of lifts your face. It makes your eyes look slimmer and smaller. And people also do this pose where they pull back like this to like give them a natural facelift, and it kind of slants out their eyes. I do think it's kind of weird how Asians are constantly mocked about our small eyes. You know, we're called chinks. How people pull back their eyes like this to make fun of Asian people. And now it's suddenly a trend to have like smaller eyes and have that slant that Asian people naturally have. How it wasn't cool before until like a white girl did it, and suddenly it's cool and trendy and pretty. Another recent thing I want to talk about is the use of racist Asian lyrics, especially when it comes to rap songs. I don't know why it's so like popular amongst rappers. Recently there was that song that was kind of popular on TikTok, and it went like, eyes like Asian, ling ling, and the person who rapped it is not Asian. And it became very controversial once the Asian community found out about it. I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but there was this TikToker who tried defending the lyrics lyric and said how it wasn't racist and how we should just get over it, and how if we are offended by it, then life's gonna be pretty rough for us, and how we should just ignore it, and how no one was offended by it until someone told you to be offended by it, and how it's okay and it's just a song. Z Smitty. Oh, sorry, I had something in my throat there. Let me re-say it. Z Smitty. I'm not gonna get too much into it, but if you go on my TikTok, I have videos like explaining everything and educating. I've come across multiple experiences where Wasians are like, oh, I'm part Asian and I'm not offended by this. That just screams, pick me. That just screams, I want validation from white people. And to say that with all these controversial topics, you are not helping Asian people at all. You're not helping the community to grow, and you're kind of just suppressing us and helping people discriminate and helping people be racist. I remember that one Asian dude on TikTok that was like, oh, I do not care if it's called the Chinese virus, you stupid liberal. Okay, you white wannabe. Anyways.
I think using the term Chinese virus, that puts Asian Americans at risk, that people might target them.
My Asian half doesn't care, you stupid liberal.
I know a ton of like pick-me Asians who like make Asian jokes just so that they can feel validated by white people and other people, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Do not build into the stereotypes and make like these Asian racist jokes. You're making it seem like it's normal and it's okay, and it's not. And I know a lot of Asian people also laugh at when a white person makes an Asian joke just because they want to, again, feel validated. You cannot let racism, if it's a big amount, a small amount, slide. That would just normalize it and create a snowball effect and tell other people like, oh, it's okay if I make this racist Asian joke right now. Oh, it's okay if I write this racist Asian lyric. Last thing I'm gonna leave off on is it's called the coronavirus. COVID-19. It is not called the Chinese virus. And I always hear people be like, oh, it came from China, so that's why we should call it Chinese virus. Okay, you came from an accident, but we don't call you an accident. That is all I have to talk about. I hope you guys found this relatable or learned something new. I'm gonna go finish my lunch and also go pee because I've been sitting here for 2 hours talking to a damn camera. Bye!
Alright, should I go?